100,000 kilometers a year over the same terrain, and in your working life you have worn a dozen hardy vehicles into scrap, and you have heard about other people being hit, but never yourself. And you don't take notice of vehicular accidents when they are featured in sanguineous detail on the TV news. It takes time to understand that you yourself have been halted, battered and nearly slain, deprived of routine and separated from comfort, T-boned actually, and flung into a water-filled ditch by a truck running a stop sign hit and run. He was alone when he came to. The cab capsized driver's side in ditch water. He hung hooked partway through the passenger window, arm and shoulder paining him awake, glass in hair, shoeless feet grappling at the steering wheel. He tried to ignore the granular chewing in his armpit and shifted, but barely because of pain. There was a bothersome clamor about him in the air, whining, slamming, cracking, and grunting. He stopped, disgusted to hear himself struggle so. Save for his gasping, he could nearly appreciate the calm of the morning. After a moment, he could discern the slow ticking of the cab's dead motor and a malevolent rumble from somewhere mysterious below. Silence, then the rumble again. The car, he divined, was slipping downward. He tells us this of this later the day, as the afternoon wanes, and his second beer is near gone, and the morphine haze in his eyes only slightly cleared. So anyway, and by the by, Paul, I tell him, you probably shouldn't be drinking. You probably shouldn't be handing out unsolicited advice. But we can't listen to a story like this without paying the debt to happenstance, to the vacancy between relevance and irrelevance, the emptiness of question and answer. Content is misleading and deceptive, not to mention the elegant literary device of elision at play here. Elision, the act of leaving out. You suggest the first and last, and the middle fills itself in. And that reminds me of the time I broke up with this girl and got back together and broke up again, and then we stopped seeing each other and then resumed back and forth a bunch of times over a relatively short period, the instability being the rule, of course. So it got to be an unhealthy situation, to say the least. And then she went fluid on me one night. We'd been apart for a few weeks. She asked if I'd had sex in the interim. Normally, of course, I would lie about a thing like that. But having lived, as you know, in deceit for so many years, I was sick of not being myself. In fact, at that point, I was damn proud to be at least a month clean and sober from all forms of untruth. It took a hell of an effort, and I wasn't about to break the chain. So I gave it to her straight. Her face was turned away from me at the precise moment, so I didn't see any contortions or anything. But I could sense something red rising up. Still, the first punch I thought was just joking. She didn't say anything. Started throwing combinations. I had to duck. Then she started using her feet. For some reason, though appalled, I'd been nearly premonitory about the thing, prepared, so to speak. I cannot explain this, but I was. At the same time, I understood that words were irrelevant. She was demonstrating this herself. Not a word spoken. Only pure action. Very male, by the way. It felt weird. So, anyway, without a word, fending off blows, I carefully gathered up all my stuff and made for the hallway. Picked up my shoes, all the while with her hailing punches down and kicking my lower body. I held my clothes with one arm and fended with the other. I got the apartment door open. It was about 2 a.m, so I knew I had a reasonable chance to be naked in the hallway with it nobody knowing. But I knew she'd slam it hard behind me. So I damped the door with one hand and an unprotected butt cheek. It eased quietly shut. I now feel that was a definitive touch. If you have to be thrown out of a woman's apartment in the middle of the night with your clothes off, and we all do sooner or later, at least make sure nobody gets woken up because of it. So, epiphany? Maybe not all that way. But I had a moment, slipping my duds on in that cold hallway, not looking up for fear of somebody seeing me. I had a moment. I understood with dead certainty that we're not going to be doing this forever.